The world of Eldoria was a tapestry woven with threads of deep emerald forests, silver-streaked rivers, and mountains that kissed the clouds with icy peaks. But for Elara, Eldoria was mostly the quiet valley of Hearthglow, a place of comforting routines and familiar faces. Hearthglow village nestled snugly between the ancient, gnarled trees of the Whispering Woods and the gently rolling hills that eventually gave way to the distant, towering Obsidian spires, a jagged range rumored to touch the very edge of the sky. Elara was a girl with eyes the color of moss after a spring rain, and hair the shade of twilight, often escaping its braids to frame a face perpetually alight with curiosity. While other children of Hearthglow spent their days chasing fireflies or learning the rhythms of farm life, Elara preferred the hushed corners of the village library or the quiet solitude of the old willow tree by the river, where she could dream. She loved stories above all else, tales of ancient heroes, slumbering dragons, and the forgotten magic that once pulsed through Eldoria like a heartbeat. Her favorite stories were those her grandmother Lyra told, stories that felt less like fiction and more like whispers from a long-lost past. Grandmother Lyra was a woman carved from kindness and wisdom, her face a map of wrinkles that crinkled delightfully when she smiled. She smelled of dried herbs and warm bread, and her hands, though gnarled with age, were always busy, knitting intricate patterns or mending torn clothes. Lyra's stories were different. They weren't from books, they were from memory, passed down through generations, each tale shimmering with a truth that Elara felt deep in her bones. Some things, Lyra would say, her voice a soft murmur, are not meant to be forgotten. Little star petal, they simply wait for the right heart to remember them. Elara often thought of those words, especially during the long, clear nights. Hearthglow was a place where the stars seemed closer, brighter than anywhere else. On nights when the sky was a velvet cloak studded with diamonds, Elara would sneak out of her small cottage, wrap herself in a thick woolen blanket, and lie on the dewy grass, staring up. Sometimes, if she was very lucky, she would see them, the sky shards. The sky shards were Hearthglow's most beautiful mystery. They weren't shooting stars, though they moved with a similar swiftness. They were fragments of pure, shimmering light, sometimes blue as a robin's egg, sometimes green as new leaves, sometimes a fiery gold, that would drift down from the heavens, dissolve before they touched the earth, leaving behind only a faint, sweet scent of ozone and starlight. Most people in Hearthglow saw them as pretty omens, good luck if one passed overhead. But Elara felt a deeper connection. She felt as if they were trying to tell her something. One particular evening, as the first chill of autumn began to nip at the edges of summer, Elara witnessed a sky shard unlike any she had seen before. It wasn't a streak of light, but a slow, deliberate fall, like a tear shedding from the eye of the cosmos. It was a deep, impossible violet, edged with shimmering silver, and it didn't dissolve. Instead, it landed with a soft high thumple in the overgrown field behind her cottage, just beyond the old stone wall. Elara's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Curiosity, a powerful current, pulled her forward. She scrambled over the wall, heedless of the brambles that snagged her nightgown. The air grew colder here, tinged with that familiar ozone scent, but stronger, almost tangible. She scanned the field, her eyes straining in the dim twilight. And there it was. Not a shard of light, but a shard of a something. It lay nestled in a patch of tall, withered grass, glinting faintly. It was obsidian, undeniably so, but unlike any obsidian she had ever seen. Most obsidian was jet black, sharp, and reflective. This shard was the deepest violet, shot through with veins of shimmering silver that seemed to pulse with an inner light. It was cool to the touch, impossibly smooth, and as she picked it up, she felt a faint hum, a vibration that resonated deep within her palm. It wasn't heavy, but it felt ancient, vast, like holding a piece of the night sky itself. As she held it, the silver veins within the obsidian pulsed brighter, and Elara felt a strange sensation, as if a memory that wasn't hers was stirring within her mind. She saw flashes, a loom, vast and dark as the void, shimmering threads of starlight, and hands, ancient and graceful, weaving patterns of breathtaking complexity. A whisper, too faint to form words, brushed against her thoughts, a feeling of immense creation and profound loss. She clutched the shard tightly, her breath catching in her throat. This was more than a pretty rock. This was magic. The next morning, Elara showed the obsidian shard to Grandmother Lyra. Lyra's eyes, usually sparkling with gentle humor, widened slightly when she saw it. She took the shard from Elara's hand, her touch surprisingly delicate. "A sky shard," Lyra murmured, tracing a silver vein with her thumb. "I haven't seen one of these in a lifetime. Not like this, not one that landed." She turned it over and over, her brow furrowed in thought. "This is not merely stone, little one. This is a piece of the weaver's art." "The weaver's art?" Elara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "What is that, Grandmother?" Lyra sighed, a sound like dry leaves rustling. She led Elara to her favorite armchair by the hearth, where a small fire crackled merrily. "Sit, Star Petal. This is a tale not often told, even in Hearthglow. It speaks of a time before recorded history, when the world was younger, and the veil between realms was thin as morning mist." Elara snuggled into her seat, eyes fixed on her grandmother. "They say, in the oldest stories," Lyra began, her voice dropping to a low, melodic cadence, "that in the dawn of Eldoria, when the stars were still finding their places, there was a being known only as the Obsidian Weaver. No one knows if the Weaver was a man, a woman, or something else entirely. A woman or something else entirely, a spirit, a cosmic force. But the Weaver possessed a loom unlike any other, a loom crafted from the solidified darkness between these." Lyra paused, her gaze distant, as if seeing the ancient past unfold before her. The Obsidian Weaver did not weave tapestries for walls or clothes for warmth. The Weaver wove reality itself. They say the constellations in the sky are but the grandest of the Weaver's patterns, each star a knot in an intricate design. They say the paths of rivers, the flight of birds, the very destinies of kingdoms and people, were all threads in the Weaver's loom. Elara gasped. "Destinies? You mean the Weaver wove what would happen?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Not to control, little one, but to harmonize. The Weaver brought balance, beauty, and purpose to the unfolding of time. The obsidian loom was not a tool of power, but of profound understanding, of intricate connection. The obsidian threads were the shadows, the unknowns, the depths, and the starlight threads were the light, the hopes, the vibrant energies. Together they formed patterns of living, breathing magic." "What happened to the Weaver?" Elara asked, clutching her shard. It felt warmer now, as if listening. A sadness shadowed Lyra's eyes. As ages turned and mortals grew, the magic of Eldoria began to wane, not vanish, but grow quieter, like a song sung softly. People forgot how to listen. They relied on what they could see, touch, and measure. The Obsidian Weaver, seeing the world turn its back on the subtle dance of magic, withdrew. Some say the Weaver journeyed beyond the stars. Others say the Weaver simply fell into a deep slumber, leaving behind only fragments of their work. Lyra looked at the violet shard in her hand. "But they also say that the Weaver left a legacy, a hidden place where the loom still rests, dormant, waiting for a heart pure enough, a spirit curious enough, to awaken it once more. They say that when the threads of destiny begin to fray, when the balance of Eldoria is threatened, a new Weaver will be called." Elara's mind reeled. A new Weaver? Could it be her? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. She looked down at the shard, then back at her grandmother. "Where is this place, Grandmother? Where is the loom?" Lyra smiled faintly, a knowing glint in her eyes. "The legends speak of a place where the wind whispers secrets to the leaves, where the oldest trees remember the dawn of time, a glade known as Whisperwind, deep within the ancient heart of the Whispering Woods. Few have ever found it, and fewer still have recognized its true nature. It is said to be guarded by silence and shadowed by magic." The Whispering Woods. Elara knew the edge of them well, the safe paths to gather berries or fallen branches. But the heart of them was a different matter. The villagers whispered tales of getting lost, of strange lights, of ancient spirits that guarded the deep woods. It was a place of awe and respectful fear. And how would one awaken the loom? Elara pressed, her voice trembling with excitement. Lyra gently placed the obsidian shard back into Elara's hand. "The legends say that the loom awakens for a heart that resonates with its own purpose, a heart that seeks to mend, to connect, to understand the intricate dance of light and shadow. And it is said that a piece of the Weaver's own art, like this shard, can act as a key, a conduit to its dormant power. That night, sleep was a fleeting visitor for Elara. Her mind was a kaleidoscope of stars, looms, and whispered destinies. The obsidian shard, placed carefully on her bedside table, seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, a tiny, pulsing heart of violet and silver. The next morning, with a resolve that surprised even herself, Elara prepared for a journey. She packed a small satchel with dried fruit, a water skin, and a thick woolen cloak. She carefully wrapped the obsidian shard in a soft cloth and tucked it deep inside. She told her grandmother she was going to gather herbs for her remedies, a plausible excuse that Lyra met with a knowing smile and a gentle hug. "Be careful, little star petal," Lyra said, her gaze lingering on Elara's face. "The woods hold wonders but also shadows. Trust your heart, and remember what the weaver sought, balance and beauty." Elara nodded, then slipped out of the cottage and headed towards the ancient shadowy embrace of the whispering woods. The familiar path soon gave way to less trodden trails, the trees growing taller, their branches intertwining overhead to form a perpetual twilight. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and something else, something ancient and indefinable, like old magic itself. She walked for what felt like hours, deeper and deeper, guided by a strange, insistent pull from the obsidian shard in her satchel. It seemed to hum faintly, a soft vibration against her side. The trees around her were unlike any she had seen near the village. Their bark was thick and gnarled, covered in luminous moss that glowed with a faint, ethereal green. Their leaves were larger, darker, rustling with what sounded like hushed conversations. The whispering of the woods was more pronounced here. It wasn't just the wind, it was a chorus of soft murmurs, like countless voices speaking just beyond her hearing, telling tales of ages long past. Elara felt a shiver but not of fear, a shiver of awe, of wonder. She was truly in the ancient heart of Eldoria now. Finally, the trees began to thin. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, like a gentle song. The light ahead brightened, not with sunlight, but with an otherworldly glow. Elara pushed through a thick curtain of shimmering vine-like plants, and then she stepped into the Whisperwind glade. It was breathtaking. The glade was a circular clearing, bathed in a soft diffused light that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. The grass underfoot was impossibly green, dotted with flowers that pulsed with gentle colors Elara had never seen before, blossoms of sapphire, amethyst, and molten gold. In the center of the glade stood a massive ancient willow tree, its branches weeping shimmering, silver leaves that chimed like tiny bells in the breeze. But it was what lay beneath the willow that captured Elara's gaze, stealing her breath. It was the loom. It wasn't a loom of wood and string like those in the village. This was a creation of impossible beauty and profound mystery. Its frame was wrought from a material that seemed to be solidified starlight, dark and shimmering, yet radiating an inner glow. It was vast, easily twice Elara's height, and wide enough to encompass the span of an ancient oak. The warp threads, taut and gleaming, were woven from what looked like pure moonlight, stretching from the top beam to the bottom. And on the loom, partially woven, was a tapestry of astonishing intricacy. It depicted a nebula, a swirling cosmic cloud of blues, purples, and golds, alive with nascent stars. But it wasn't just a picture. It pulsed with a gentle, rhythmic light, as if it were a living part of the cosmos, breathing. And the threads it was woven from were utterly unique. Some were fine strands of starlight, others were dark, shimmering threads that looked exactly like the veins in her obsidian shard, threads of solidified night, of cosmic darkness. Elara slowly approached, her hand instinctively reaching for the obsidian shard in her satchel. The glade hummed around her, the air alive with energy. She could hear the whispers now, clearly, though they were still not words she could understand, a symphony of ancient voices, gentle and profound. As she drew closer, she noticed something else. On the ground beside the loom, nestled amongst the emerald grass and glowing flowers, was a collection of spindles. Each one was made of the same dark, shimmering material as the loom's frame, and each held a different kind of thread, a spindle of pure, vibrant starlight, another of deep, shimmering shadow, one of liquid moonlight, and even one that seemed to hold gossamer strands of solidified dreams, swirling with faint colors. This was it, the heart of the obsidian weaver's legacy. Elara carefully pulled out her obsidian shard. As she held it up, the shard pulsed with a powerful warm light, mirroring the silver veins within it. The loom, which had seemed dormant, stirred. The partially woven tapestry on it brightened, and the silver leaves of the willow tree chimed more rapidly, as if in joyous recognition. A soft, almost imperceptible hum resonated from the loom. A deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the glade and through Elara herself. It was a sound of awakening. Guided by an instinct she didn't understand, Elara approached the loom's frame. There was a small empty indentation near the central beam, shaped perfectly for her shard. With a trembling hand, she pressed the violet obsidian into the space. A wave of pure, shimmering energy washed over her as the shard clicked into place. The loom flared with light, threads of starlight and shadow dancing along its frame. The air crackled with magic. And then, a single, dark, shimmering thread, exactly like the ones woven into the tapestry, detached itself from one of the spindles on the ground and floated towards Elara. It hovered before her, impossibly delicate, yet radiating immense power. It was an obsidian thread, waiting to be woven. Elara reached out, her fingers brushing the cool, smooth surface of the thread. A spark of pure wonder ignited within her, and she knew with absolute certainty that her journey had only just begun. The loom of the obsidian weaver was stirring, and she, Elara of Hearthglow, was at its threshold. A spark of pure wonder ignited within her, and she knew, with absolute certainty, that her journey had only just begun. The loom of the obsidian weaver was stirring, and she, Elara of Hearthglow, was at its threshold. Her fingertips brushed the obsidian thread, and a shiver, not of cold but of profound resonance, traced its way up her arm. It felt like cool river stone warmed by starlight, impossibly smooth, yet holding the weight of ages. As her skin met its surface, the thread pulsed, a deep, silent thrum that vibrated through the air, through the colossal chamber, and through Elara herself. It wasn't just a thread, it was a conduit, a whisper of forgotten power. The air around the loom shimmered, twisting like heat haze above a summer field, but composed of pure, unblemished light. The myriad spindles, some brimming with threads of every conceivable hue and texture, others bare and waiting, began to hum in concert. A symphony of silent energy, each spindle adding its unique note to a swelling crescendo. The very ground beneath Elara's feet, the polished obsidian floor, seemed to awaken, radiating a gentle warmth that spread through her worn boots, soothing away the weariness of her long journey. The obsidian thread in her hand began to glow, not with an outward radiance, but with an inward luminescence, like embers breathing beneath dark ash. It drew her forward, a gentle, insistent tug, towards the very heart of the loom. The great empty shuttle fashioned from some unknown dark wood that seemed to drink the light, descended silently from its resting place high above, settling into the vast intricate framework of the loom. It clicked into place with a sound like ancient bones finding their rightful home, a soft resonant echo that filled the vast space. As the shuttle settled, the immense, unseen warp threads of the loom, stretched taut between the upper and lower beams, began to shimmer. They were not made of conventional fiber, but of pure ethereal light, shifting through all the colors of a dawn sky, from the palest rose to the deepest indigo. These were the foundational threads, Elara realized with a gasp, the very essence of possibility, waiting for the weft to give them form. A voice, soft as a dream yet clear, as the chiming of a crystal bell, resonated not in her ears, but deep within her mind. Welcome, child of Hearthglow. The threads remember you. Elara looked around, startled. There was no one else in the chamber. The voice seemed to emanate from the loom itself, from the very air, from the shimmering tapestry of light that stretched before her. Fear not, little spark. I am the loom, and I am the weaver. Or rather, the echo of what was, and the promise of what shall be. One day, masiwa one night, balihiwa ma. The loom, the weaver. Elara whispered, her voice barely a breath. The obsidian thread in her hand pulsed again, as if in agreement. Indeed, Endirde, a destined Sadistar, known in Warfstar. Many names have been given to this place, and to the hands that once guided its shuttle. But the purpose remains. To mend, to create, to connect. To weave the fabric of existence, thread by thread. Ye. But why me? Elara asked, her heart aflutter with a mix of awe and trepidation. I'm just Elara. I weave blankets and shawls for my village, simple things. A gentle, amused warmth flowed through her mind from the loom. Simple things, you say? Is there anything truly simple in a comfort given, a warmth shared, a story told through the patterns of a weave? You have the touch, Elara. The hearth glow within you is a thread of its own, a connection to the warmth and light that sustains all living things. It is a rare and precious fiber. In now, Kao Naidi, Kadatius Steshikada. As the loom spoke, the obsidian thread in Elara's hand extended, lengthening, becoming less a single strand, and more a shimmering, dark river of possibility. It flowed from her fingers, up towards the waiting shuttle, then gently, gracefully, wrapped itself around the spindle within. It was no longer just a thread, it was now one with the loom, ready to be drawn and woven. Kiss, thread you hold, Elara, is the thread of unseen truths. It is the beginning of your understanding. To weave with it, you must first understand the loom itself. It is not merely wood and metal and light. It is a living chronicle, a library of all that has been, and all that could be. Come closer, little weaver. Let the loom show you. In Kahana. The vast, intricate machinery of the loom began to shift and reconfigure itself. Not with clanking gears, but with the silent grace of unfolding blossoms. Sections of the great frame drew back, revealing hidden pathways and shimmering alcoves within its colossal structure. The light within the chamber deepened, the ethereal warp threads intensified, and the air filled with the scent of stardust and ancient forests. A new pathway opened before Elara, a gently sloping ramp made of polished obsidian, leading into the very heart of the loom. It was less a path and more an invitation, bathed in a soft, guiding luminescence. Hesitantly, Elara stepped onto the ramp. The obsidian felt cool and smooth beneath her boots, imbued with a subtle, protective energy. As she ventured deeper, the sounds of the outer chamber faded, replaced by a delicate internal melody, the gentle hum of countless threads, the sigh of ancient wood, the rhythmic pulse of the loom's own heart. The ramp spiraled downwards, then widened into a series of interconnected chambers, each one a universe unto itself, held within the vast architecture of the loom. The walls here were not stone, but interwoven light, shifting and breathing with every beat of the loom's pulse. This is the chamber of whispering strands, the loom's voice guided her. Here, the raw essence of creation gathers. The threads of dreams, of starlight, of memory, of laughter, of sorrow, of courage, of every single emotion and experience that shapes a living being, lie waiting to be gathered. Aninumdiga, Gadi Silhai, Sinde now, Kadse. Elara gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. Before her, stretching into the shimmering distance, were not just spools of thread, but fields of living light. One chamber glowed with the soft, shifting hues of slumber, where gossamer strands of forgotten dreams drifted like fireflies. She saw a thread, iridescent and fragile, shimmering with the fleeting joy of a child's first laugh. Another pulsed with the steady, quiet strength of a mother's love, thick and warm as spun gold. There were threads of sorrow, like shimmering tears, and threads of courage, burning with an inner fire. She reached out, mesmerized, towards a cluster of particularly vibrant threads. They were woven from pure, concentrated joy, dancing and sparkling with an infectious energy. As her fingers neared, a tiny creature, no bigger than her thumb, detached itself from the shimmering strands. It was made entirely of woven light, a miniature sprite with wings of iridescent gossamer, its eyes like twin drops of liquid starlight. "Oh, Candy," Elara whispered, holding her breath. The sprite buzzed around her head, a soft bell-like hum its only sound. It had delicate, shimmering limbs and a tiny, graceful form that seemed to be spun from the very essence of the joyful threads. "Kiss is Lumin," the loom's voice explained. "Kaishe is a guide, a keeper of the strands. She will help you understand the language of the threads. One now." Lumen hovered before Elara, her starlight eyes studying her with an ancient wisdom that belied her tiny form. Then, with a gentle chirp, she darted towards a particularly vivid thread, one that seemed to sing with the pure, unadulterated spirit of adventure. "What is this one?" Elara asked, drawn by the thread's vibrant energy. Lumen twirled around the thread, then zipped back to Elara, hovering at eye level. A small, clear image formed in the air between them, like a projection from a tiny lantern. It showed a distant, snow-capped mountain peak, a lone climber making their arduous ascent, their face set with determination, their heart filled with the thrill of discovery. The image faded, and Lumen chimed softly. "The thread of adventure," Elara murmured, understanding dawning within her. "And this one?" She pointed to a thread that pulsed with a deep, comforting warmth, like a hearth fire on a cold night. Lumen sipped to it, and a new image materialized. A small cottage, warm and inviting, a family gathered around a crackling fire, their faces alight with contentment and love. "The thread of hearth and home," Elara breathed, a pang of longing and warmth stirring within her. It felt so familiar, so much like her own Hearthglow village. Lumen darted from thread to thread, showing Elara brief, poignant glimpses of the experiences they embodied. The silvery thread of moonlight, showing quiet contemplation under a vast sky. The shimmering gold of ambition, showing an artist tirelessly perfecting their craft. The deep indigo of sorrow, showing a figure weeping by a graveside, yet subtly interwoven with threads of remembrance and love. Elara spent what felt like hours or perhaps mere moments, simply observing, learning, and feeling the essence of each strand. She realized that every thread, no matter its apparent simplicity or complexity, held a story, a moment, an emotion. And these were the raw materials for the loom. "You see, Elara," the loom's voice resonated, "new tapestry of existence is woven from these very strands. Every life, every moment, every dream contributes its unique thread. When the fabric tears, when hope dims, when connections fray, it is the task of the weaver to mend, to strengthen, to reimagine. And I am to be that weaver?" Elara asked, a sense of gravity settling upon her. "How are to be why weaver," the loom corrected gently. "Many have come before, and many will come after. But for this moment, the loom stirs for you, Elara of Hearthglow, for the unique spark you carry within." Lumen, who had been patiently observing, now zipped towards another path, one that glowed with a soft ethereal light, distinct from the vibrant hues of the strands. It led deeper into the loom's interior, into what appeared to be a vast, circular chamber. "This is the chamber of pattern and intent," the loom explained. "Here, the raw threads are given purpose. Here, the weaver's heart guides the hand." Elara followed Lumen. The air in this chamber was alive with a gentle harmonic hum. The walls were not solid, but formed from countless interwoven strands of light, creating an intricate, ever-shifting mosaic of patterns. In the center of the chamber stood a massive circular table, made of the same deep obsidian as the loom's frame. Upon its surface, intricate diagrams of light pulsed and shifted, like living blueprints. "These are patterns?" Elara asked, tracing a finger over a particularly beautiful swirling design of starlight and shadow. "Indeed. They are the potential forms, the blueprints for what can be woven. A dream to be brought into being, a memory to be preserved, a connection to be strengthened. But a pattern alone is not enough. It requires intent." Lumen landed on Elara's shoulder, her tiny form surprisingly warm, and nudged her gently towards the obsidian table. "Place your hand upon the table, Elara. Let your heart speak." "And see." Elara hesitated for a moment, then with a deep breath, placed her palm flat upon the cool, smooth surface of the obsidian table. The moment her skin touched it, a burst of warmth flooded her, and the patterns of light on the table intensified, swirling faster, responding to her presence. Suddenly, images flickered through her mind, not like the projected images Lumen showed her, but as vivid as memories. She saw her village, Hearthglow, bathed in the soft light of evening, smoke curling from chimneys, children playing in the square. She saw her grandmother, old and frail, but her eyes alight with stories as she knitted by the fire. She saw the familiar faces of her neighbors, their quiet joys and their unspoken worries. And then, she saw a subtle fraying. A small, almost imperceptible tear in the fabric of hearthglow. It wasn't a physical tear, but a feeling of disconnection. A farmer, isolated by a recent loss, withdrawing from the community. A small, persistent misunderstanding between two families, growing into a chasm. The quiet fading of an old tradition, once the vibrant heart of the village. These were not grand tragedies, but the quiet, insidious unraveling of the threads that bound hearthglow together. A wave of sorrow washed over Elara, followed by a fierce, protective love. She wanted to mend these tears, to reweave the warmth and connection that defined her home. You see, Elara, your hearthglow is connected to the grand tapestry. The small tears in its fabric are felt here, within the loom. Your heart knows the pattern of what needs to be mended. Now, let us begin the work. The patterns on the obsidian table coalesced into a single, intricate design, a map of hearthglow, interwoven with shimmering threads that represented its people, its traditions, its very spirit. And on this map, the small areas of fraying were highlighted, pulsing with a faint, sorrowful light. To mend these, you must choose the threads. The thread of unseen truths that you first touched will help you perceive the deeper currents, but you will need more. Go back to the chamber of whispering strands. Luminen will guide you. Seek the threads that resonate with the needs of your hearthglow. Seek the threads of connection, of understanding, of shared joy, of quiet comfort. For each fraying, there is a counter thread, a remedy. Ish. Only my man. Lumen chirped brightly, fluttering from Elara's shoulder, and leading the way back towards the chamber of whispering strands. Elara felt a surge of purpose, a deep sense of responsibility mixed with profound excitement. She wasn't just observing now, she was participating. She was to be a mender, a weaver of hope and connection. Back in the vast expanse of the whispering strands, Elara now looked with new eyes. She didn't just see beautiful lights, she saw potential solutions, echoes of emotions and experiences that could heal the quiet wounds of hearthglow. Lumen, Elara whispered. Show me the thread of understanding. Lumen sipped off, leading Elara to a cluster of threads that shimmered with the cool, clear light of dawn. When Elara touched one, she felt a profound empathy, a quiet knowing that transcended words. She saw fleeting visions of people truly listening to one another, bridging divides with patience and compassion. Yes, Elara murmured. This is perfect for the misunderstanding between the Miller family and the Baker family. She gently gathered a handful of the understanding threads. They felt cool and light in her hands, like spun moonlight. And for old Master Eldrin, who feels so alone after losing his wife, Elara continued, her brow furrowed in thought. He needs comfort and a reminder of connection. Lumen led her to a different section, where threads of warm, comforting hues pulsed with quiet strength. Elara chose strands that embodied shared memory, gentle companionship, and the enduring warmth of community. These threads felt soft and resilient, like the finest lamb's wool spun with sunlight. She continued like this, guided by Lumen and the loom's gentle presence, carefully selecting threads for each small tear she had perceived in hearthglow's fabric. Threads of renewed laughter for the children, threads of shared purpose for the village council, threads of quiet strength for the struggling farmer. She gathered them into a shimmering bundle, each strand pulsing with its own unique energy, harmonizing with the others. Once her selection was complete, Lumen led her back to the chamber of pattern and intent. The obsidian table still pulsed with the map of hearthglow, the frayed areas softly glowing. You have chosen well, Elara, the loom's voice resonated. No, bring your chosen threads to the heart of the loom. It is time to prepare the shuttle. Lumen flew ahead, leading Elara through another series of shifting pathways, deeper still. This final chamber was the most magnificent of all. Here, the colossal loom stood in its full glory, its central weaving mechanism bathed in an intense yet gentle, golden light. The vast warp threads, shimmering with all the colors of possibility, stretched endlessly above and below. And in the center waiting was the empty shuttle, now glowing with a soft, inviting warmth. Elara approached the shuttle, her heart thrumming with anticipation. It was larger than any shuttle she had ever seen, intricately carved with symbols that seemed to writhe and flow with ancient power. Lumen circled it once, then landed on its edge, looking at Elara expectantly. Place your threads within the shuttle, Elara. Not just physically, but with your intent. Let your hearthglow guide your hands. Feel the purpose of each strand as it settles within. With trembling hands, Elara carefully laid the bundle of chosen threads into the hollow of the shuttle. The understanding threads, the comfort threads, the threads of laughter and shared purpose. As each strand settled, it seemed to melt into the shuttle, becoming one with its essence, imbuing it with their unique energies. The shuttle pulsed brighter, humming with a growing resonance. Finally, she placed the obsidian thread of unseen truths, which she had carried all this time, within the shuttle. It lay nestled amongst the others, a dark, gleaming anchor ready to guide the weave. The moment the last thread was placed, the shuttle rose gracefully from its resting place, guided by an unseen force. It ascended to the weaving position, hovering perfectly between the shimmering warp threads. Elara looked up, her gaze fixed on the shuttle, on the waiting loom. The grand tapestry of existence stretched before her, and the first threads of her own weaving were about to be laid. The loom of the obsidian weaver was ready, and so, she realized, was Elara of Hearthglow. Her journey had taken her beyond the familiar, beyond the visible, into the very heart of creation. And now she was ready to weave. Her journey had taken her beyond the familiar, beyond the visible, into the very heart of creation. And now she was ready to weave. A breath, she realized, was not just air in her lungs, but a moment of existence, a tiny ripple in the grand ocean of time. Elara drew one such breath, feeling it resonate, not just within her chest, but through the shimmering space around her. The shuttle, suspended before her, pulsed with a soft internal light, like a sleeping heart awaiting a dream. The warp threads, thinner than a spider's silk yet stronger than any mountain, hummed a silent song, a melody of all that was and all that could be. Her gaze drifted over the loom, a vast, intricate apparatus that seemed to stretch into infinity, yet felt as intimate as her own beating pulse. It was not made of wood or metal, but of starlight and shadow, of whispered promises and forgotten ages. Each warp thread seemed to hold the potential of a universe, a life, a choice. And she, Elara of Hearthglow, was poised to choose. What would she weave first? Her heart fluttered. Should it be something grand, a new star in a distant galaxy? Or something small? A gentle dream for a child lost in sleep on a world she didn't even know existed? The weight of endless possibility pressed upon her, not with fear, but with a profound sense of awe. Then, a memory, soft and warm, bloomed in her mind. The scent of wood smoke from her own hearth, the gentle glow of the hearth fire, the comforting weight of her grandmother's hand in hers as they sat by the fire, mending old quilts. A simple, powerful intention. Not a place, but a feeling. Warmth, safety, belonging. As that feeling solidified in her heart, the shuttle stirred. It vibrated with a low hum, a note that seemed to echo from the very fabric of existence. Slowly, gracefully it dipped, catching one of the countless shimmering warp threads. It wasn't a physical thread of yarn, but a filament of pure light, spun from the essence of potential. With an ethereal click it began to move, a silent, swift dance. Elara didn't consciously guide it with her hands, which remained gently clasped before her. Instead, it was her intent, her emotion, her very essence that directed its path. The shuttle wove not back and forth, but in intricate spiraling patterns, drawing the shimmering weft thread over and under the warp. With each pass, a faint, golden light bloomed, coalescing into form. What she was weaving, she realized, was not a physical object, but an imprinting of that feeling. A shimmering, intangible tapestry began to unfurl before her, a small square of warmth and light. It wasn't Hearthglow itself, but the essence of Hearthglow, woven into the fabric of the cosmos. When the shuttle finally stilled, the small square hung suspended, radiating a gentle, comforting warmth. It was a patch of pure, unadulterated belonging, a beacon for any soul seeking solace. Elara reached out a tentative finger, not quite touching it, but feeling its radiant energy. It was perfect. A tiny, perfect stitch in the grand tapestry. A wave of profound realization washed over her. This wasn't about creation chic ex nihilo from nothing. It was about shaping, guiding, and harmonizing the existing threads of potential. The loom didn't create, it organized. It gave form to the formless, rhythm to the chaotic, meaning to the abstract. And she, the weaver, was its instrument. With growing confidence, Elara began to experiment. She thought of the crisp, clean scent of frost on winter mornings, and the shuttle wove a thread of delicate silver, creating a whisper of crystalline air that carried the faintest hint of pine. She recalled the joyous laughter of children playing in a sun-dappled meadow, and a thread of vibrant emerald green flowed, manifesting as a patch of resilient, life-affirming energy that hummed with quiet delight. The loom, she discovered, was an infinitely patient teacher. It responded to her every thought, every feeling, every nascent intention. Sometimes a thread would seem to resist, to tangle, and she would realize her intention was muddled, her focus wavering. Then, with a gentle mental adjustment, a clearer image, a purer emotion, the thread would flow smoothly once more. She learned that there were countless types of threads: the luminous threads of light, the deep, resonant threads of shadow, the shimmering threads of time that flowed like rivers, the intricate, knotty threads of memory, the gossamer threads of possibility, and the strong, binding threads of connection. Each had its own texture, its own vibration, its own subtle influence on the weave. The great tapestry was not a single flat fabric, but a multi-dimensional marvel. She could zoom in, so to speak, on a single strand, exploring the intricate details of a single life, a single moment. Or she could pull back, seeing vast nebulae of potential, entire galaxies as mere flecks of color in a cosmic design. It was all interwoven, interdependent. A shift in one thread could ripple across countless others, creating new patterns, new destinies. The previous weaver, she sensed, had left behind not just the loom, but a legacy of wisdom embedded within its very structure. Faint patterns would sometimes appear in the warp, like ghost images, guiding her hand, suggesting a particular knot or a specific flow of threads. These were not commands but gentle invitations, echoes of ancient craftsmanship. She saw glimpses of celestial rivers being woven, new species taking form, entire civilizations blossoming from a single, carefully placed thread of innovation. Days, or perhaps ages, passed in this timeless space. Elara lost all sense of conventional time. Her existence became a continuous flow of intention and creation. She wove gentle breezes to guide lost ships on distant seas, spun threads of healing energy for ailing forests, and even once, wove a particularly vibrant thread of courage into the heart of a timid young hero on a world she had never even known existed until that moment. Each act was a profound connection, a whisper of her presence across the vastness. Her fingers, which had initially been hesitant, now moved with an intuitive grace, mimicking the shuttle's dance. She had learned to manipulate not just the shuttle, but the warp threads themselves, gently separating them, pulling them taut, or allowing them to slacken, to create space for new patterns. The loom had become an extension of her will, and she, an extension of its eternal purpose. As her proficiency grew, Elara began to perceive not just the beauty of the tapestry, but its imperfections. These were not flaws in the conventional sense, but areas where the weave was thin, where the vibrant colors had faded, or where threads had become tangled and frayed. Some regions hummed with a discordant note, while others were unnervingly silent, like patches of forgotten song. The loom, in its silent way, seemed to draw her attention to these areas. A particular warp thread would shimmer more brightly, or a weft thread would pulse with a subtle invitation. These were not mistakes of the previous weaver, she understood, but areas where the tapestry needed renewal, areas where new possibilities lay dormant, or where the delicate balance of existence had begun to fray. One such area, vast and unsettling, began to command her attention. It was not dark, but rather an absence of light, a vacuum of color. The threads here were not broken, but stretched perilously thin, almost invisible, like a memory fading into oblivion. It was a region of profound silence, A pocket of cosmic stillness where no laughter echoed, no stars twinkled, no dreams bloomed. She felt a deep, resonating chill from it, not of cold, but of emptiness. She sensed it was a place the previous weaver had perhaps left untouched, not out of neglect but perhaps out of necessity, or as a deliberate space for the next weaver to discover and address. It felt like a deep, cosmic sigh, a place where the vibrant song of existence had simply ceased to be heard. The loom showed her a faint, fleeting vision, an echo perhaps of the Obsidian weaver's final moments. She saw a hand, much like her own, reaching towards this very void, a look of profound contemplation on a face obscured by starlight. The hand paused, then withdrew, leaving the space as it was, a silent challenge, a canvas awaiting a new artist. Elara felt a powerful pull towards this silent fray. It called to her, not with urgency, but with a quiet, persistent yearning. It was a place that needed her touch, her creativity, her empathy. It was more than just mending. It was about bringing something new into being, about rekindling a spark where only absence remained. Taking a deep breath, Elara focused her will. She extended her consciousness towards the silent fray, feeling the subtle resistance of the thinned threads. It was like trying to weave with moonlight, intangible, yet demanding profound precision. She knew she couldn't simply patch it. She had to understand its nature, to find the right threads to reawaken its potential. She began by weaving a path, not of physical threads, but of pure intention. A shimmering silver-blue bridge of light and thought began to extend from her position at the loom, stretching across the vast interwoven cosmos towards the silent fray. It wasn't a journey in space, but a journey of spirit, an exploration of the deeper layers of existence. As she traversed this ethereal bridge, the cosmic tapestry around her shifted and swirled. She passed through nebulous regions of nascent stars, through shimmering veils of forgotten dreams, through resonant chords of ancient wisdom. Each thread she passed was a story, a life, a universe, all interconnected, all part of the grand design. The silent fray grew closer, its presence more pronounced. It wasn't empty, she realized, but overflowing with unformed potential, a swirling vortex of raw, unarticulated essence. It was the very substance of possibility, waiting for a guiding hand, a shaping thought. Within its depths, she perceived faint, shimmering motes, nascent ideas, unbirthed concepts, forgotten melodies that longed to be sung. It was not a void, but a womb. Reaching the edge of the silent fray, Elara hovered, her silver-blue bridge dissolving behind her. She was now suspended over the swirling, formless essence. It was overwhelming, yet captivating. She felt a profound sense of responsibility, but also an exhilarating thrill of creative power. What did this place need? Not light, not shadow, but a sound. A melody, a rhythm, a vibration to awaken the dormant potential. Elara closed her eyes, listening not with her ears, but with her soul. She reached deep within herself, past the memories of hearthglow, past the awe of the loom, to the deepest, most fundamental rhythm of her own being, the steady, unwavering beat of her heart. She focused on that rhythm, a simple, primal beat. Thump-thump, thump-thump, tart. It was the sound of life, of existence, of continuous creation. As she concentrated, the shuttle, which had followed her to the edge of the fray, began to pulse with a low, resonant thrum. It dipped into the raw essence of the silent fray, drawing forth not a thread of light or shadow, but a thread of pure vibration, a shimmering filament of nascent sound. With Elara's heart rhythm guiding it, the shuttle began to weave. It spun intricate, spiraling patterns, creating a delicate ethereal web of sound within the silent fray. At first, it was just the gentle, rhythmic thrum, echoing her heartbeat. Then, as she poured more of her focused intention into it, the sounds began to diversify. Soft whispers, like rustling leaves, emerged. Then faint, melodic hums, like distant lullabies. Tiny crystalline chimes, like dewdrops falling on ancient stones. The silent fray was no longer silent. It began to hum, to resonate, to sing with a chorus of nascent sounds. The unformed essence within it swirled and coalesced, responding to the newly woven vibrations. Elara felt a profound sense of connection to this place, to these nascent sounds. She wasn't just weaving on the loom. She was weaving Hintai, the very fabric of unformed existence, coaxing potential into being. She was just beginning. The silent fray was vast, and her work was far from complete. But as the first harmonious chords began to echo through that once empty space, Elara knew, with every fiber of her being, that she had found her true purpose. The loom of the Obsidian weaver was hers, and the grand tapestry of existence awaited her touch, her song, her endless creativity. There were so many stories to tell, so many silences to fill, so many threads yet to be spun into being. And Elara, the weaver of Hearthglow, was ready for them all. And Elara, the weaver of Hearthglow, was ready for them all. Elara's first creations were small, tentative whispers against the vast silence. With a soft hum, she wove a ribbon of morning mist, shimmering with the unspoken dreams of sleeping flowers, and released it into the dawn, watching it unfurl over the Hearthglow fields, leaving behind a faint, sweet scent of promise. Next, she spun a lullaby for a lonely stream, its waters suddenly rippling with silver notes that soothed the stones and coaxed shy fish from their hiding places. She wove a memory for an old oak tree, a forgotten chuckle from a child who had once played beneath its branches, and the tree's leaves shimmered with a renewed, gentle joy. Each creation, no matter how tiny, filled the empty space within the loon's chamber with a resonant echo, a warm, golden glow that pulsed in time with her heart. She learned to listen not just with her ears, but with her soul, to the whispers of the world around her. She heard the faint ache of a star that had lost its way in the cosmic dance, and wove a thread of guiding light, shimmering with ancient stardust, to help it find its rhythm once more. She felt the longing of a cloudless sky for a touch of iridescent wonder, and spun a delicate rainbow, a fleeting arch of 7 vibrant hopes, that arced across the heavens for a single breathtaking moment before dissolving into the wind. The loom of the Obsidian weaver responded to her with uncanny grace, its obsidian frame shimmering with an inner light, its shuttle dancing through the invisible threads of possibility with a silent, eager anticipation. One twilight, as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, Elara felt a peculiar tremor through the loom. It wasn't a call for creation, but a sense of something missing, a void forming not in the vastness of space, but in the heart of Hearthglow itself. Old Man Thistle, the village elder, known for his endless supply of whimsical tales and twinkling eyes, had grown quiet. His stories, once vibrant tapestries of adventure and magic, now emerged as faded echoes, their colors muted, their endings lost. A gentle melancholy had settled over the village, like a persistent, gray mist. Elara visited him, sitting by his hearth, which seemed to burn a little less brightly than usual. "Elder Thistle," she began softly, "your tales are like the very breath of Hearthglow. What troubles them?" The old man sighed, a sound like autumn leaves, rustling. "Ah, Elara, my dear, it's as if the threads that hold them together are fraying. The beginning is there, the middle, but the endings, they slip through my fingers like grains of sand. And without an ending, what is a story but a lingering sigh?" Elara felt the loom stir within her, a quiet understanding dawning. It wasn't just stories he was losing, it was the very thread of resolution, the satisfaction of completion. The loom of the Obsidian weaver, she realized, didn't just create. It could mend what was broken, complete what was unfinished. She returned to her chamber, her heart alight with purpose. This was a different kind of weaving. She sat at the loom, closing her eyes, and listened. She didn't seek to create a new ending, but to find the seal lost ones. She reached into the shimmering space before her, guided by the faint shimmering resonance of Elder Thistle's fading tales. She felt for the loose ends, the forgotten knots, the unraveled conclusions. With a focused breath, she began to spin, not with thread, but with the essence of memory, of closure, of the satisfying click of a story falling into place. She sang a quiet song, a melody of completion, of the gentle curve of a circle returning to itself. The loom hummed in response, its shuttle moving with a newfound, delicate precision. Slowly, carefully, she wove the lost endings back into being. She spun the final triumphant roar of the dragon, the bittersweet reunion of long-lost lovers, the quiet wisdom of the hermit who found peace in solitude. She didn't invent them, she simply found them, like a meticulous librarian reshelving misplaced books, each one imbued with the warmth of its original telling. She returned to Elder Thistle's cottage just as the evening stars began to prick the sky. "Elder," she said, "I believe I have found something for you." She laid her hands gently on his, and a soft, warm glow passed between them. The old man's eyes, once dim, brightened with a sudden spark. The wolf. He finds his way home, through the deepest snow, guided by the scent of hearthfire, he exclaimed, a wide, joyous smile spreading across his face. And the princess? She doesn't just marry the prince, no. She leads her people, wise and just, with the prince as her steadfast advisor. His voice, full of its old vigor, boomed through the small cottage, and the hearthfire seemed to flare in response. That night, Elder Thistle told stories until the moon was high, his tales richer, more vibrant, more complete than ever before. The children of Hearthglow gathered around him, listened with wide eyes, their dreams filled with triumphant endings and satisfying conclusions. Elara watched, a quiet joy settling in her heart. She had learned that weaving was not just about bringing new things into being, but about restoring what was lost, about mending the very fabric of imagination. As Elara continued her work, the scope of her understanding broadened. The loom of the Obsidian weaver was not merely a tool for her village, or even for her world. She began to sense the currents of existence flowing through it, threads of light and shadow stretching far beyond the familiar stars. She felt the distant hum of other realms, the quiet sighs of forgotten gods, the silent prayers of beings she could not yet comprehend. Her creations grew in complexity and scale. She wove a shimmering bridge of starlight between two distant constellations, guiding lost travelers across the void. She spun a thread of empathy between warring kingdoms, a subtle understanding that pulsed in the hearts of their leaders, leading to a fragile, newfound peace. She even wove a dream for a sleeping mountain, granting it visions of ancient rivers and sun-drenched peaks, rekindling its inner fire and preventing its slow slumber from turning into a permanent sleep. The loom in turn revealed more of its secrets. Elara learned that the obsidian frame was not just a dark, polished stone, but a solidified echo of the primordial night, from which all light and form had sprung. The shuttle, she discovered, was not merely a tool, but a sliver of pure potential, capable of traversing not just space, but time, memory, and concept. The threads themselves were not just colors or textures, but the very essence of possibility: joy, sorrow, hope, fear, courage, wisdom, silence, sound, light, darkness, all interwoven into the grand, cosmic tapestry. She came to understand that the silences to fill were not merely empty spaces, but moments of stasis, places where the flow of existence had become stagnant, where creativity had waned, or where a vital connection had been severed. Her song, her touch, her weaving was the catalyst, the spark that reignited the flow, mended the tear, or spun a new vibrant thread where one was needed. The grand tapestry, she realized, was not a single, tangible cloth, but the boundless, intricate network of all existence. Every star, every thought, every ripple on a pond, every breath taken by every creature, all were threads, endlessly weaving and reweaving themselves into an ever-evolving design. The loom of the Obsidian Weaver was not just her loom. It was the loom of existence, a cosmic nexus where these threads could be observed, understood, and, with careful intention, guided. Elara was not creating new worlds out of nothing, nor was she destroying existing ones. Instead, she was a guardian of the tapestry, a careful artisan ensuring its health and vibrancy. She helped to mend the frayed edges of fading constellations, to reweave the lost melodies of ancient forests, to ensure that the thread of hope, no matter how thin, never truly broke. She was a storyteller not just of tales, but of reality itself, her loom a conduit for the universe's own unfolding narrative. She began to see the patterns, the recurring motifs, the subtle harmonies and dissonances that made up the whole. She saw how a single act of kindness in one realm could ripple outwards, strengthening the thread of compassion across countless others. She understood how a moment of profound sadness, if held and acknowledged, could weave a deeper, richer texture into the tapestry, preventing a shallow, brittle existence. Then came the great stillness. It began subtly, a faint chill that seeped into the very essence of things. First, the songs of birds grew quieter, then the laughter of children seemed to lose some of its sparkle. The vibrant colors of the world began to dim, as if a thin veil had been drawn over everything. Rivers flowed with less enthusiasm, winds whispered with less curiosity, and even the stars, usually so bright and confident, seemed to hold their breath. The loom of the Obsidian Weaver pulsed with a frantic, desperate beat. It wasn't calling for creation, nor for mending. It was screaming for life. Elara understood, with a sickening lurch of her heart, that the great stillness was more than just a fading. It was an unraveling, a slow, silent dissolution of the very thread of old joy from the grand tapestry. Joy, she realized, was not just an emotion. It was a fundamental force, the very spark that ignited creation, the vibrant energy that kept the tapestry alive and dynamic. Without it, existence would become stagnant, colorless, and eventually cease to be. She reached out with her senses, following the thread of the stillness. It led her far, far beyond her own world, to a place that was not a place, but a void of absolute quietude, a pocket of anti-creation where the thread of joy had been systematically unspun, pulled apart by an ancient, nameless entity known only as the Weaver of Emptiness. This entity did not seek to destroy, but to simplify, to reduce, to bring all things to a state of perfect, unfeeling uniformity. It saw joy as chaotic, messy, and unpredictable element that disrupted its vision of perfect, serene nothingness. Elara knew she had to confront it. But how do you weave against nothingness? How do you sing to silence that desires no sound? The loom thrummed, urging her, guiding her. She felt its immense power, its deep connection to the very spark of being. She entered the void, a place where her own colors seemed to drain away, where her song felt like a fragile whisper against an infinite, indifferent quiet. The Weaver of Emptiness was not a creature of form, but a pervasive, chilling presence, a vast shadow that absorbed all light, all sound, all feeling. It was meticulously, patiently, unweaving the very threads of delight, one by one, watching them dissolve into nothingness. Why? Elara projected, her voice feeling like a single defiant note against an ocean of silence. The emptiness responded, not with words, but with a cold, clear thought that echoed in her mind. Gorda. Purity. Silence. Joy is chaos. Joy leads to sorrow. Better to have neither. Aini. Elara understood. It wasn't malice, but a misguided pursuit of a sterile perfection. But perfection, she knew, without the vibrant, messy, unpredictable thread of joy, was merely oblivion. She sat before the loom, its obsidian frame now glowing with an intense, desperate light, a stark contrast to the surrounding void. She had to weave joy back into existence. But how? She couldn't simply create it out of thin air. Joy, true joy, had to be felt, i.e., experienced, remembered. She closed her eyes and began to sing. Her song was not a creation of new notes, but a recollection, a summoning. She sang of the first giggle of a newborn, of the warmth of sunlight on a winter's day, of the taste of ripe berries, of the thrill of discovery, of the embrace of a loved one, of the pure, unadulterated delight of a story well told. She sang of elder thistles' renewed tales, of the silent joy of the old oak tree, of the sparkling life she had brought to the lonely stream. As she sang, the loom responded with a power she had never before witnessed. Its shuttle became a blur, flying through the void, not weaving new threads, but recalling them, summoning them from the deep wellsprings of memory, from every corner of the vast tapestry where joy had ever existed. Threads of shimmering gold, of vibrant crimson, of sky-blue laughter, of emerald hope, began to coalesce around her, drawn from the deepest recesses of the universe. The Weaver of Emptiness recoiled, its vast shadow flickering, disturbed by the vibrant resonance. It tried to absorb the threads, to unravel them, but Elara's song was too strong, too pure, too deeply rooted in the very fabric of existence. She wasn't creating a new joy, she was reminding the universe of the joy it already possessed, had always possessed, and could never truly lose. She wove with all her heart, with all her being. She wove the pure, unadulterated essence of every happy moment, every laugh, every smile, every whispered secret of delight. She wove the interconnectedness of joy and sorrow, showing that one could not truly exist without the other, that the richness of life came from the full spectrum of experience. She wove the thread of resilience, the quiet understanding that even after sorrow, joy could always be found again, a vibrant, eternal spring waiting to blossom. Her weaving was not an act of force, but an act of profound remembrance and affirmation. She wasn't fighting the emptiness, she was showing it the inherent, undeniable beauty of what it sought to erase. Slowly, gradually, the threads of joy began to re-emerge from the void, shimmering with renewed vigor. They weren't just returning, they were strengthening, imbued with a deeper understanding of their own preciousness. The colors began to return to the world, subtly at first, then with increasing brilliance. The birds began to sing with renewed vigor. The laughter of children echoed with its full, uninhibited sparkle. The weaver of emptiness, unable to withstand the overwhelming tide of joyful resonance, did not disappear. Instead, it retreated, its vast, chilling presence shrinking, condensing into a single, still, dark point in the farthest corner of the void. It had not been defeated by force, but by the undeniable truth of life's vibrant, joyful complexity. It had been shown that true order came not from absence, but from the harmonious interplay of all things, even the chaotic thread of joy. Elara collapsed against the loom, exhausted but triumphant. The chamber, once a silent void, now pulsed with the joyous hum of countless threads, vibrating with the returned vibrancy of existence. The loom of the obsidian weaver shimmered, its obsidian frame now imbued with subtle veins of gold and silver, reflecting the light of the reignited stars. She had not only saved the thread of joy, she had deepened its presence, reminding all existence of its vital, irreplaceable nature. She had also transformed herself. She was no longer just the weaver of hearthglow, nor even just the guardian of the loom. She was a conduit, a living embodiment of creation's song, a steadfast heart beating in time with the universe itself. When she returned to her world, the great stillness was gone, replaced by a renewed sense of wonder and vitality. The colors were brighter, the air crisper, the laughter louder. Elder Thistle, sitting by his hearth, looked up as she entered, his eyes twinkling with a profound, knowing warmth. "Ah, Elara," he said, his voice rich with stories. "The world feels more vibrant today, as if a forgotten song has been remembered and sung anew with 1,000 voices." Elara smiled, a deep, peaceful smile. She knew he understood, perhaps not the mechanics, but the essence of what had transpired. From that day forward, Elara's work at the loom of the Obsidian Weaver took on a new dimension. She still spun morning mists and whispered lullabies, but her touch was now infused with a deeper wisdom, a more profound understanding of the delicate balance of the grand tapestry. She understood that every thread, no matter how small, was essential, and that every silence, every absence, was an opportunity for growth and renewal. She became a silent guardian, a cosmic weaver who ensured that the threads of existence remained strong, vibrant, and interconnected. She mended tears in the fabric of time, gently rewove forgotten memories into the hearts of fading cultures, and spun shimmering threads of hope for worlds teetering on the edge of despair. She learned to listen for the subtle dissonances, the faintest signs of unraveling, and to respond with a careful, loving touch. Sometimes she would feel the faint, distant presence of the weaver of emptiness, a quiet, watchful shadow in the farthest reaches of the void. But it no longer sought to unravel. It merely observed, perhaps slowly, subtly, beginning to comprehend the intricate, messy, beautiful dance of creation it had once tried to silence. Perhaps Elara mused, even silence had its own thread in the tapestry, a background against which the vibrant colors of life could truly shine. Elara, the weaver of hearthglow, now a true weaver of existence, continued her endless work. The loom of the obsidian weaver pulsed steadily, a silent heart at the core of all things. Its song was her song, a never-ending melody of creation, mending, and renewal. There were indeed so many stories to tell, so many silences to fill, so many threads yet to be spun into being. And Elara, with her wise heart and nimble fingers, was ready for them all, forever weaving the grand shimmering tapestry of dreams, one thread, one song, one heartbeat at a time, ensuring that the magic of existence would never fade. And as you drift to sleep, little one, remember Elara and her loom. For every happy dream you chase, every gentle whisper of the wind, every flicker of starlight above your window, perhaps, just perhaps, it is a tiny thread from her magnificent endless weaving, spun with love, just for you. Sweet dreams.